Welcome, everybody, to If I May, podcast with me, Kyle, just an average guy, along with three of my average friends, Brent, Nick, and Dylan. We're going to talk about stuff while interrupting as politely as possible. This is episode 41. Let's do this. So right before this started, Dylan and Nick had a conversation about a new movie called Mortal Engines, and I know nothing about it. Please explain.
All right. Yeah, I'll start. So, the general gist I got from the commercial was that basically cities were not like alive, but basically cities were transformed or created into where they were. Cities.
Words are hard. I understand.
I know. They put cities on wheels, and then basically they made it available for the cities to eat one another. So,
Wait, what?
Yeah, so basically, like, the cities would be able to open up the front and kind of swallow it. Kind of like, I'm trying to think of an example, but basically the fronts of the cities would open up and they'd eat smaller cities, and then they would take the population.
Salivate, or
they would take the what's that?
Is there saliva involved in this one city eating another city?
There's lots of oil, I guess. There's lots of like when they eat the other cities, they take all the natural resources and stuff from that city. So they take the population and they kind of integrate them into this new bigger city, and they take all the parts to feed their bigger city. And the cities basically roll around and they take parts and stuff. I think it's
so like this is like Waterworld except on land with cities.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, so and it's based out of the UK. So, and I think what the general idea is that it's kind of describing the current overpopulation crisis, where like cities are getting so big that they're just kind of swallowing up the smaller cities. And yeah, I think that's kind of what it's representing. And so I've been reading the book, and the book's kind of interesting, and it's about like this kid that's growing up in the big city, and he does it, and he kind of grew up, and this is in London, I believe. And he's grown up in a time where they are getting to the point where they haven't been able to eat any smaller cities. And so kids are growing up where they call it the chase. And the kids grow up when they have never experienced a city chase before. So like it's been years. And so the city's kind of starting to die. And like UK itself is drying up, and like cities are just kind of starting to go more extinct. So now basically the city has to decide whether or not to start to basically wither and die, or to go out and try to hunt and try to survive. Now the movie
is this like Agario, where like you're just a small blob initially, and you try to like get smaller blobs than you, and you get bigger, but with cities. Exactly. So what happens if you're in a city that gets hunted?
If I may, it's not an eating process. Eating is it's an analogy or a metaphor, if you will, and there's a couple different levels. This is me speculating because I've seen the same commercials or previews for the movies, and yeah, it's not like one city eats another. It's purely an analogy for these large cities could not survive where they were physically on the planet, so mechanically they became advanced enough to essentially make their cities mobile. On wheels is a simplification of whatever they do to
if I may,
march around.
From an engineering standpoint, that sounds like a pain in the ass. Like, it just seems like it'd make much more sense just to move and make a new city.
If I may, they literally made it so that the cities like literally eat one another. The fronts open up and they drive over the smaller cities,
like a
and they
Pac-Man
close
situation.
Down. Exactly.
If I may, that's only to capture them. That's to make sure they don't get away. Like once you have quote unquote consumed the city, it is within your control. It can't run away.
Right.
Yes, it looks like it's being eaten, but it's not like being crushed.
Right.
It's being engulfed.
Right. Yeah, it gets engulfed in the city, and then I don't know what they call it, but they basically have a whole bunch of engineers and dudes basically go in and disassemble the entire city. And then they take all the bits and pieces and the population and the materials, and they reintegrate it into the bigger city to grow.
The commercial, I think there's a main character of sorts running away, and they're like, oh my God, it's London. And London is this, of course, massive city, and they're running away from it, and they're essentially engulfed by the city.
Yeah, watch out for London. I hear their bridges fall down.
part of the as part of the chase. But what I would also consider, if it's not, it would be kind of silly as almost a political satire, looking at the environment around the world where main cities, huge cities, are engulfing the political
suburbs and stuff.
And this is a prime example of, okay, after they've consumed everything, they have to look elsewhere, and eventually.
So, if I may,
consume.
Does London like go towards the EU? Be like, you guys can consume me. Just kidding, just kidding. No, you guys can consume me. Just kidding, just kidding. Like, is that how it works?
Brexit, no. But at any rate,
current political situation jokes.
Yeah, so
if I may, from an environmental standpoint, wouldn't it make sense just to use clean, renewable energy sources instead of trying to use these antiquated fossil
I'm
fuels?
done talking about this movie.
Dylan, from a militaristic standpoint, what's the view here? Do they have no defense besides running away?
That's pretty much, yeah. So basically, the smaller cities, they focus on speed, and the bigger cities, obviously, they have more stamina, so they're able to last longer. So basically, in the story, in the book, London was able to catch this smaller city because the small city obviously had the speed, but then they ran out of fuel, they ran out of resources, and then London just ate them up.
Renewables, man.
Yep.
Wow.
So,
well,
the book, the book was, the storyline was kind of awful. Because I read it, I read it because the commercial looks so amazing. I was like, I really want to see this movie because graphically it looks amazing. So I read the book and I'm just like, wow, this storyline is terrible. But I'm still excited to see the movie because, like I said, the graphics are amazing and they made it look like it's like very well designed and it just looks very appealing to the eye. So I'm like, it's very visually appealing. So I'm like really excited to see it. Kind of like when Avatar first came out and we were just like, whoa, I've never seen anything like that before. Yeah, well, I don't know if this one's gonna be 3D or not. I'm not quite sure, but it just looks so appealing that I'm very interested in watching it.
Do you guys like the 3D movies? I guess for me personally, I think certain movies would be good with. Okay, number one, I know that there's movies that can literally be shot in 3D versus ones that are like post-edited to become 3D just to make the extra buck. So like, if I'm gonna go see a 3D movie, it better be one of the ones that was like legitimately shot in 3D. Avatar was the first example where legitimately they shot everything with two cameras right next to each other to make the 3D a realistic effect and not have to do it in post-production. Besides the blue people and the flying birds and all the CGI stuff anyway. But I guess what are your guys' view on 3D movies in general?
The last 3D movie I remember seeing was in 2009, Avatar. So that kind of explains what I feel about them.
I think I saw one of the Avengers in 3D. I think I saw Age of Ultron in 3D.
I mean, it's gimmicky, and anything that's... there might have been another one I saw, but I don't remember what it was.
Dylan, Nick?
All I remember is Avatar.
I really enjoy 3D movies just because it's kind of like mind-blowing still. That it's still like they can even do it, especially with the technology. Like I really was bummed out by the red and blue glasses. That was really disappointing. But as soon as they came out with the Kyle, what'd you call the filtering?
So
glasses,
it's polarized lenses.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
yeah, they have polarized lenses, and then they can flicker the screen between the two different bands or directions of light or whatever, basically, and it only shows you half of it at a time, giving you the 3D effect.
Yeah, that's so much better than blue and red.
I think 3D would be really cool in virtual reality. I think that's where the next step for 3D movies is.
Isn't that the same?
Well, no,
like VR basically puts you in 3D. Oh, you're saying do the 3D movie in VR, so you basically you're like in the scene.
Okay,
that's the next step for me.
I was literally just thinking about that and how like that would be. You're right. That would be the next step movie, and I think the one movie so they already came out with a couple movies in first person view, and my favorite is Hardcore Henry. Have you ever seen it?
I heard about that, and Nick, we actually both saw the commercial for that thing at the same time. We're both like, that looks like it has a lot of potential. I need to watch that movie.
Awesome. Yeah, so Hardcore Henry is it's really interesting. It's the whole movie's in first person, and it's like action the whole movie. So if you're really into action, it's like one of the sickest movies. But then if you made that virtual reality where you could actually move your head around and be part of the story, like that would be a next level movie. But that'd be hard to produce for like theaters because then everyone have to have goggles too. So that would
Well, I
be
think that's
way
not
more-
a non-logical step. Like that seems like that might be one that could legitimately happen, where
It's definitely
there's literally
doable.
theaters of just VR goggles.
like VR movies.
Yeah.
That
It's
would
just
be
like a
super-
super high-end set that you could never afford at home, but you can go to the theater and experience it.
Problem with that is movies today are already so washed out to be visually stunning and loud and in your face and lots of bright colors and action scenes. And if I look at example John Wick, I love John Wick, but it's just the Matrix redone a few years later with Neo and Morpheus just doing goofy stuff. That's what the commercial for John Wick 3 looks like. It's they even have the same line where John Wick asks Morpheus, he's like, what do you need? He's like, guns, lots of guns. That's a verbatim line from the Matrix. But going back to the main point here, if you were to have a 3D fully immersive, the problem would be this: storytelling would be almost impossible. Storytelling, because I mean the level of detail that you have, I mean,
I
that
don't think
occur in-
it couldn't be true 3D where you can look all around. It would have to be like a 180-degree view maximum kind of thing. Otherwise, yeah, the storytelling would be so much more difficult. But like, think of the Avengers scene.
Think about this real quick. Any movie where it's a tense moment where a door is about to open, like outside of making the doorknob make a horrible creaking noise to like absolutely need to draw your attention that way, force people to look at what you want. And there's all kinds of effects in 2D movies where they zoom in on it or they do something like that. How do you do that in 3D? Because hypothetically, especially in scary movies, you're going to have people who are like, oh, nope, wherever they want me to look, I'm looking the other way. I'm going to see this shit coming.
Nope.
Like it's just like, no, that's not how it works. And I mean, so few stories are great like Game of Thrones or George R.R. Martin's writing, where it translates nicely. That additional element of going 3D, I think storytelling is going to get worse than it already is.
I don't know. Well, I guess if I may, I think that the storytelling, the way of storytelling would just have to change. Like you'd have to edit the way you make movies and the way you tell stories in movie. Because yeah, like you said, you can't just direct their attention specifically to one spot. At least not with a camera. You'd have to do it in some other way. Like yeah, they like hear jiggling, and then everybody in the room's like, wait, what? And then you hear it jiggling again, and then they look over. And you can hear it out of your right ear because you have like stereo surround sound headphones on, so you know exactly where that sound's coming from. So,
if I may, so obviously, I think it would be really, really difficult to do scenes that you're actually like filming, but I think it's totally doable for movies that are animated. Like, you can imagine like being immersed in an animated movie. Like, you imagine like being in Shrek and like being like. And just like going through the story with him and like being over all the fire and like in the lava, like that would be so cool to like be in an animated movie. I think that would be totally doable. And you just move the camera as you're programming where you want, and you could basically program in 3D, like in 3D. So
it would
no matter where you look,
it would basically be like, Ready Player One, where he's like literally replacing one of the characters in the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
You're gonna miss part of the story. Looking at all the lava and wandering around, you're going to miss when Donkey has a snide line, or you're going to miss when the bridge cracks because you're like, oh my God, look at the lava, so cool. You're going to miss aspects of the story. I mean, yes, visually it would be so cool, and you're right, and I'm totally on board, but the storytelling takes a hit.
All right, what about this, though? What about this?
You're following along.
How about this? What if we have it where instead of movies being you have a set 3 hours or the movie like everyone watches at the same time, what if it's more of a go at your own pace? So people who want to go through can go through it quick, kind of like a video game almost, but instead it's just like the cutscenes.
Money off that.
I don't know. It could be interesting. I mean, it's just how do you innovate and change?
Nick, what I'm picturing is like that'd be kind of cool. Yes, you could like kind of look away from the story and look in other places, but I think that would be really cool places for like the animators to hide Easter eggs. Like you could either watch a story if you're looking behind you, like up underneath like some like a ledge or something, you could see like their initials or something.
Yeah, I say if I may, I think it's the same thing as like they're kind of doing current movies, where like all your attention's directed straight at the like action or whatever's currently going on. But a lot of movies already throw like Easter eggs and stuff, like, you know, on the edge of the screen, or did you see that picture in the background? Like the whole Disney thing with Tarzan's parents potentially being Elsa's parents. Like they have the ship, and Tarzan had the ship. Like there's the connecting kind of background stuff. You do the same thing, just in 3D. Anyhow, so Dylan, right? So Dylan recently joined the podcast, and he kind of brought up a good question earlier about the whole Zaru bust, if I may thing. So I guess, Dylan, do you want to pose the question? And then Brent will have you take the first stab at answering.
Yeah, so as you guys know, I'm very new to the podcast, and I was kind of wondering about like the history of where the name Zarubust comes from, because it seems to me that the title we've been saying mostly "if I may," which makes sense because that's the name of like every episode that we start is "if I may." So I was kind of wondering like where does Zarubust come from, and could I and the viewers get kind of like a quick history on where that comes from?
So Zarubust was before we even started doing the podcast, if I may, which happened kind of over a half-week span where we came up with the concept. I think Nick was saying, if I may, and we pretentiously went at each other for a week through text and then in person. I think I visited you that weekend. Really fun weekend, by the way, in Minneapolis. But we ended up, before even doing the podcast, Nick, Kyle, and I were like, let's figure out something to do together. And if you go on our YouTube channel, that's sort of what we thought of when we're like, let's do something together. We made Zarubust our YouTube / whatever else we wanted, kind of like a company, not as a company, but like a group. We're like a group of like, we are going to be Zarubust, and we'll make, in this case, we started off making videos under the Zarubust name. And then as we moved on, we thought, well, let's do the podcast. I think that'd be really interesting. Let's make a podcast. So we'll make it under Zarubust because we would post it up to our YouTube channel. But then the podcast itself is If I May. So I think of this like I follow I actually listen to a lot of podcasts. It's something I commute a lot, so I listen to a lot of podcasts. And one podcast company that's out there is Gimlet Media. They have a really great startup, or a really great podcast called Startup, which kind of details their whole start of the company. But basically, the podcast name was Startup, but Gimlet is the people that are making it. So
it's like Barstool Sports having all their different podcasts under the Barstool Sports. So that's kind of the general idea, is that Zarubust will be like our quote-unquote media company, or at least a group of things we decide to throw together when we feel like it. And If I May is the podcast within that. So if viewers, you think that if you're a new viewer, especially not family or direct friends of any of us, and
you're listening to this
particular episode, and you're confused and you think our branding is not ideal, please let us know, and we will update for you, just for you.
So, if I may, could you kind of go in, like, who made up the name Zarubust and how you came to that name? Like, in general, you just said, like, you came up with it.
Yeah,
like...
so the bust part came from the first two letters of two of our last names. We were trying to mix all three of our last names, like the first two letters together, and make, like, a weird word out of it. And just, like, I don't know, nothing that we were coming up with made too much sense. So like the BU is the first two letters of one of our last names, and the ST is the first two letters of the other, one of our other Purples members' last name for the first two letters. You get it. So that's the bust.
Got it.
And then the Zaru part is actually, we were trying to think of just like, what can we do for a logo? Like, what do we all think is funny or like or whatever? And Brent found the logo of like the monkeys. That's kind of like the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil monkeys. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, I like monkeys, and we're all on board on the monkeys. And so I Googled and Wikipedia'd the three no-see-em monkeys.
Emoticons. Yeah,
whatever they're called, you get it. and their true Latin names or Japanese names, wherever they, I think it's Japanese names. You get it. If you go on the Wikipedia, they all have Zaru in it.
Interesting.
So it's like Kiba Zaru, Shiba Zaru, and blah 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 Zaru is like the name of the 3 monkeys in their traditional language. So that's where the Zaru came from. And then so we just threw it all together and made Zaru Bust, and we get a monkey as a logo. Presented by Noreen Designs. Link always in the description. She's awesome.
Yeah, and the monkeys were a pretty easy thing to make a easy, quick logo behind, which definitely helped out. And it symbolized the 3. I should actually post the original logo because I have each of our favorite colors, as each of the monkeys was one of the different colors of our favorite colors, and it's so cute. I'm really proud of it. But
my favorite color is blue, is in the background, but it just didn't look quite right. So
yeah, we've since moved on into a little bit more of a formalized shirt, which I actually really like our new logo a lot. We kept kind of the monkey theme, but modernized it, and really cool.
Who designed it?
Yeah, so that's one of our friends who she has a website. We always link it. It's Noreen Designs. And yeah, so she's a graphics designer, and she hooked us up with helping out in exchange for a couple 3D prints.
Sick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think our producer just mentioned we do have like our past videos on YouTube. If you check those out, it's got our old logo on that as well. And our old intro, which Brent, you're developing a new intro. What do you got, Nick?
Now, if I may, for the record, I believe our most successful video that we've ever made.
Oh, yes. Let's go into this.
A video put together by myself and some friends. And it is actually the video I used to help sell my motorcycle. It's me riding my motorcycle around Appleton, Wisconsin. And I think we used Kyle's drone to assist with some of the footage as well.
I have an FPV drone. So, and Nick was like, like when all the motorcycle videos that have drone footage, like the motorcycles always sell. And I was like, sure, like that sounds fun. I'll help film it. And if you watch that video, you can see the drone. It was so windy that day. Like all the footage is like, I corrected a lot of it, but it's still like a lot of it's a little diagonal because of the wind.
Yeah. So it was a cool process of kind of just taking some shots, riding around, and I had Kyle help out with his drone, and then I had a couple buddies riding a vehicle next to me
in portrait mode. Oh my god! You know how hard that was to edit, Nick? Do you know how hard it is to edit portrait mode into landscape mode without screwing things up and making it look like crap?
So Kyle's a superhero is what I think.
My favorite.
I'll take it.
So my favorite part of that video is we have Nick's all suited up, wearing a helmet. Good on you, bud. I actually do really appreciate that. But you're looking like you're supposed to be flying on this really sleek motorcycle, and if you look really close, you can tell based off of like the things in the background, he's only going like 20 miles an hour,
like
15 miles an hour.
Obviously, the speed limit.
He's like zooming down these roads, and it's Nick on
45 at one point.
And we got the footage sped up.
Oh no.
No, it's an awesome video. It's definitely our best video.
So the footage sped up wasn't even intentional. So like, there's a frame rate thing where like it was basically like the cell phone footage was capturing 30 frames a second, with the GoPro footage was at 60 frames a second. And I started with some of the GoPro footage. So when the cell phone footage came in, it basically just doubled the speed of the video. I didn't even do that intentionally, but then like after editing it, I was like, oh, like 3-4 minute video, something like that. Perfect timing, like perfect length of a video for somebody who might be interested in a motorcycle. And then I like watched it and I'm like, oh, all the footage is sped up. Well, it flows good and it's about the right time length, so we'll call it good.
That's sick.
I gotta throw in, we have a 100% success rate selling things with our videos. So if you're looking to sell something, we could be your guys. Put us on your
Yeah, let us know.
Did you guys see at all that the GoPro challenge where they're saying like, and this is not new, this is relatively old, and it was like a GoPro challenge. Basically you'd send in your videos, and if GoPro liked your videos and they wanted to use your videos, they'd pay you basically money for your videos, and then they'd use it in their advertising. So people were spending like I remember that I was like watching this YouTube video, and he spent like $3,000 of his personal money to like go down in like the Caribbean and take all these like amazing videos of wakeboarders and stuff. And then so he talked about how like he wasn't funded at all. Like all of this came out of his own pocket, just to do this challenge. And GoPro ended up like buying like 3 of his videos, which paid off, and he made like $10,000-$15,000. But I can imagine how most people, or a lot of people, would like send in videos that obviously they wouldn't commit such a financial burden to like go through that. But I think it's like super cool that GoPro gives people the opportunity to kind of help them with their advertising.
Yeah, so if I may, there was a point where GoPro was kind of like trying to become a media company, and it did not go well for them. Like if you look at their stock history, they peaked, I don't know exactly when, like, I don't know, they peaked about 3 or 4 years into business, and then they started trying to buy up and focus on other stuff, and they just ended up getting dropped like crazy from the stock market. So, and then,
interesting.
Yeah, so at one point they like were starting to get back on top of it, and then they went like 2 things in a row. They tried to like basically start a media company, which is kind of what you're saying, is basically just throw GoPro media at everybody, and they'll like it, and they'll come and they'll consume our product, and they'll consume our media, and they'll want to buy our media. And then the other bad decision was the drone. They tried to make their own like GoPro drone, which was really stupid of them. Like everybody that was serious about drones was already just making their own custom ones and putting GoPros on them. So taking what DJI Phantom was doing with the more not consumer, but like professional video shooting drones, and trying to combine it with like the person in their backyard who's a super serious drone flyer, it just didn't work out because both those markets were already super saturated and had a really good solution for them.
I saw that GoPro put out, I think it was like 2 different models of drones.
No, they got one, and they found out that it vibrated, and the vibration over time opened the battery compartment, which loosened the battery, and they just drop out of the sky. The second model turned that plastic part into a metal part, and it was fixed. That's
what is the mount that they made for GoPro for filming? So if you're in a vibration thing, basically it was a weight that hung down below your camera, so whenever you're filming it would like dampen the vibration, so everything looks smooth. So if you're like moving around quite a bit, it would offset all of your vibrations, so even though you're vibrating a lot, the camera would be super smooth.
Yeah, so
and now why couldn't they put that on the drone?
They did, is the short answer. So there's 2 types of stabilization. One that's mechanical, which is exactly what you're talking about with the whole weight, and it has motors in it that can, and an accelerometer, so it detects any motion you're doing, and then basically has the motors actuate to keep this camera steady and basically cancel out whatever you're doing for movement. The second kind is digital, and that's what GoPro uses by standard on all their modern GoPros anyway. Apparently the Hero 7, their newest model, is like above and beyond. Like it's just super good at this digital stabilization because it's gotten more powerful and a better camera. But basically it can digitally stabilize the picture, so you lose some of your resolution because it basically shifts the picture around and just crops the outside edges that are like black or nothing by the shifting, and just gives you whatever's in the middle. With GoPro with the wide angle lens, that actually works out really well because you don't really care about the very fringes of the view as much because they don't take up as much real estate in what you're viewing.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
So,
all right.
No, okay. So I saw these videos online, and I don't know how this became a thing, but it's apparently a thing now to throw slices of Kraft cheese at your baby/dog's face or pet in general.
Is it like is the video going for just like this like reaction in your animal?
Yes, exactly. And it's mostly for babies. You're supposed to take a slice of American Kraft cheese and just flop it onto their face. Like, I mean, imagine a pancake. You know what an American cheese.
Every person, I think they show it for kids. They show it for adults. They show it for everybody.
It started with babies. It's now expanding to anywhere you can get a reaction. But yeah, they're just throwing slices of American Kraft cheese on living things' faces and getting their reaction. And there's the whole like person like child abuse slight of kind of thing with like animal cruelty, but like an animal's not going to mind. They're just going to eat that cheese right afterwards. Like, I don't see it's bad for animals. Babies, I can see how some people wouldn't like it, but like some of the reactions are so funny.
I've seen so far. I've seen one video online of cheese, and I was just like, why? Where did this come from? Why would someone do this? But it was a person throwing a slice of Kraft cheese on their like cat, and the cat. To be honest, the cat's reaction was pretty awesome. The cat did not know what to do with that piece of cheese and just freaked out.
Have you seen those videos of the cats where they like place the cucumber behind it and the cats just like turn around, see the cucumber, freak out, and jump like 30 feet?
No.
Oh, look up cucumber cat. It's fantastic. Brent or Nick, please back me here.
Yes, I've seen them. They are absolutely hilarious. They make no sense whatsoever, but whatever the instinct of the cat is, when they see a cucumber on the floor like that, they geek out.
I haven't seen it.
What? Nick's got some good videos. Nick will always forward. It's from the same like area or group. He'll always forward the same compilation of stuff. Right.
Let's go quickly and say they're not all good videos. There's good moments in all the videos. There's like 2 or 3 really good moments, but it's low hanging in some cases. But explain what they are, Nick.
You saying my comedy's lowbrow?
In this case, yes. In this case, I would say these videos are pretty lowbrow.
I was laughing at the fact that you said lowbrow. Like, what does that mean?
Oh, I understand it. There's some really good ones. I'll give you that. But when you watch the whole video, you lose brain salt.
Oh, please let me all right, if I may.
Oh, God.
I looked up the definition of lowbrow, and it is simply not highly intellectual or cultured.
Or the opposite of highbrow is another definition of that.
Oh, very good.
Just saying my videos are lowbrow. Yes.
First time you guys have heard lowbrow?
Yeah. That was the first time I ever heard that. Dylan, read off the definition one more time, please.
This is the definition of highbrow, scholarly, or rarefied in taste. I don't really like that.
I want to be rarefied in taste.
Yeah, but lowbrow is not highly
undercooked steak right there. It's like an undercooked.
Gentlemen, if I may, it has been stated before that I sound like the most educated individual on this podcast. I will out that fact and proven that today. So thank you.
Brent has a master's.
I knew the word lowbrow. I knew what he was going for. Don't me with these other two. I was ready to have a intellectual, stimulating conversation about this.
Okay, so I'm gonna mix the political satire, however you want to pronounce that, if you're highbrow or lowbrow.
Satire.
But
depending on your brow.
Please look in the mirror and check your brow.
Check your brow and you can know where you stand on this. But at any rate, a lot of the videos I post now are a compilation of a bunch of crap, and the internet.
Lowbrow crap.
Highbrow crap in some cases.
No, a lot of it's lowbrow. The video I posted recently, for the record, was a video of Theresa May. I'm not sure how much you guys know about what's going on with Brexit, the British leaving the European Union, and or at least attempting to. And Theresa May is the Prime Minister of the UK, and
she sounds pretty highbrow
at the moment. Because the Brexit does not have good terms. A lot of people are upset about it, and it's interesting to see where that's been going over the last couple months, weeks. It's been heating up. They had to push the deadline back, and there's all kinds of details there that I won't get into. But at any rate, this is going to seem random, but I'm a huge fan of Lord of the Rings. Like, not like super fan. I've read all the books, and I go to the Comic-Con equivalent or anything like that. But I like the movies. I've watched them all. I've watched the extended cuts. They're very good. The gentleman who does the character Gollum must live in the EU or is involved with a group in the EU, because the gentleman who does the voice of in the Lord of the Rings is involved with this video to kind of make fun of Theresa May. And Theresa May is an older woman. She kind of has the whole Hillary Clinton pantsuit going on a lot, and she's been around the block a lot as far as politically speaking, trying to figure out how to make this Brexit happen. But she's got a very definitive look. That her hair is always the same. It's Donald Trump-esque, where you could just have a picture of Donald's hair, and you're like
a Hitler stash. You know whose stash that is.
All right, let's not bring him into this.
I'm just trying to make sure that reference everybody will understand.
Clinton hair.
Thank you. At any rate, very recognizable character. So apparently, in this video, the gentleman who does the voice of Gollum is dressed as Theresa May, has the hair, has lipstick on, has earrings, looks the part.
Wait a minute. Wait. If I may, pause. That was actually a dude?
Yes.
I did not.
Gollum?
I thought the dude did the voice of Gollum, and there was actually like a female doing the Schmeagol.
Again, look closely.
I did not realize that.
Kyle,
I watched that video.
Kyle, that's almost as bad as Nick ripping on John Wick. Like, that's in the same category.
Okay. At any rate, he's an actor. I'm sure he has no problem dressing up like a woman. I don't need to judge. At any rate, what they do is
I'm not judging. If anything, I'm gender blind. Sorry, continue.
Relations. Your parents must be so proud.
Wait, if I may, Kyle, let's ask them.
Stop.
If I may,
just
Kyle,
go. Keep going.
Let's go ask your parents. Are they proud of you?
Nope, they're gone right now. They're. You see, Nick even muted himself because he knew you were done talking. Yeah, they went over to the hotel. Sorry, can't.
Cute. Okay, sorry.
Nick, would you like to continue?
I actually wouldn't. Like, I'm all for the whole theory of the if I may and interrupting, but you guys won't let me tell a continuous story. Like, I understand I go a little long and ramble, but generally I have something to say, and I can't even get there with you guys. So either you guys shut up and I finish this, or we can just move past it. It's not that great anyway.
I will keep quiet. I would love to hear what you have to say, Nick.
Appreciate that.
I'm sorry, I'm a lowbrow person, so I'll try not to interrupt anymore.
Exactly. So, at any rate, you have this actor who is the voice of Smeagol, who is dressed up as Theresa May, full outfit and everything. And if you know anything about Lord of the Rings, Smeagol was obsessed with the Ring of Power. He refers to it as his, and I quote, precious. And in this video, they have a butler or some character, and maybe it's a political reference. I don't know enough about their politics to know if it was a person of importance or not, but brings Theresa May the full document, which is a giant book, and she refers to it as her precious, and goes back and forth just like Smeagol, having the dual personalities, one that's trying to be loving and caring for the people, and the other one that's
but
like
the people's votes.
No, and it's hers. They can't have it. They can't take it. The control, the money, the power, and of course it's all in Smeagol's voice, which is haunting and crazy sounding. So it was kind of really cool, the connections between the characters and how she referenced Brexit being her precious and everything it was trying to do. And then it has a few really funny moments where it's like, oh, but the people, they want to vote. They want to tell us what's going to happen. Like, they're our friends. And then the other side of the voice is, you don't have any friends.
It stole a lot of the direct quotes from the movie and pieced it into this discussion.
Exactly, but it's a couple minutes of length. Just look up Gollum, Prime Minister May, and you should be able to find it on YouTube. If you appreciate Lord of the Rings and you know anything about Brexit, it's absolutely hilarious, but it is a bit of a highbrow satire. So in the latest happenings, it may go over your head. A good video that I've posted. The rest of them are usually compilations of more lowbrow nonsense, but there's also just little things that make me giggle like a little girl. So it's all good. Finish my spiel. I do appreciate it.
It was a good story. I liked it. All right, so Kyle, we were talking earlier, and you brought up the Olympics, and we were kind of discussing gold medals and the difficulty of different sports and competition, and we got on this topic of what would be if you could compete in any sport to try to get a gold medal, which would be the easiest?
Right. Well, I guess number one, anybody in the Olympics that gets a gold medal is the best in the world at whatever they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the question is like, what would be like the easiest gold medal to get? Like, if you're, I don't know, do you go like physical? I feel like if you go towards like one of the more physical sports or, competitions in the Olympics, you'd have to like go for one of the team sports. Cause then like, if you're a scrub on the team or like a backup player, you still get the gold medal, but you didn't really have to be top tier. You're slightly below that. Whereas like maybe you go more like skill based, like shooting or that kind of thing. Like I'm not sure what's quote unquote like the easiest gold medal to get.
Along that line of thought, you would want to create your own sport. They add new sports to the Olympics regularly, and I'll make the statement probably the 100 best water polo players in the world have never played water polo before. You take athletes from basketball, football, these mainstream sports. Your LeBron James, if he had instead of focused on basketball, focused on, you're damn right, he'd be the best athlete thrower on the record. Sorry, he's an athletic. But that's kind of my statement. If you wanted an Olympic gold medal, you almost need to create your own sport, something that not many people are familiar with, something really obscure. I think there was a woman, and I don't know what country she represented. It may have been the U.S. or it may have been, Britain or France or something like that. But this woman had like a ton of gold medals, but she was involved with like obscure shooting competitions.
Shooting, but only with your non-dominant hand and with your non-dominant eye at targets that are 10, 15, and 20 feet away. Specifically, that competition.
She had as many gold medals as anyone else. I think Phelps holds the record for the most because there's so many different swimming competitions. But the same kind of thing. Shooting is a competition in the Olympics, and there are several versions of it. If you come up with your own version and you've specialized in it, you could probably sneak out a gold in some kind of sport in the first 2-3 years it makes the Olympics.
So now that you say that, go ahead, Brent, first.
Equestrian. You have a horse that does all the work for you.
Ooh.
Like, you don't have to be an athlete to be an equestrian. Obviously there's probably more that goes into horseback riding than that, and you have to be able to take care of a horse. But I feel like if a sport where the horse is the true athlete, you just kind of ride along and...
That's a good point.
For the ride.
That's a good one.
What about shooting from horseback, like Angelina Jolie? Like, is that a sport? Is that a thing that could be a thing? Like,
so if I may,
I've never seen it before.
Hold on, I have to ask. Why did you reference Angelina Jolie? In the history of Genghis Khan, Mongolians, and all the great horse riders of the world, why did you pick the one with boobs?
Shooting from a horse? Like Angelina Jolie. Not like anybody else.
I don't know.
Oh,
that's just my head was Angelina Jolie. Oh,
that's
Lord.
a great point.
I'm just calling it straight on that one, boys.
Oh, but you're right. I was just picturing one of the Tomb Raider movies she did. She was riding on the horse, shooting targets like with her guns, and that's just kind of what I was picturing. But you're right, Nick. In like the history of humans, like we've shot bows and arrows, and
there's people that have shot a lot more stuff from her.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like Lansing.
The military man in the military history. Nope. Straight to Angelina
Straight
Jolie.
to movie with Angelina Jolie.
That's okay.
Yeah, you have to bring is it Lance? No, what's it called? Where they like jousting. Bring jousting back. Make that a Olympic sport. That'd be pretty crazy.
So dangerous though.
That's a dangerous
Easily
sport.
die. You don't want to.
For sure.
Die in. But then again, I always thought you could die in swimming. So.
Yeah, right. You're putting people in water. They'll eventually die if they keep doing it.
Or if they forget how to swim.
Or if they just decide to stop. That's why that is one of the only sports where if you decide to stop, you just die.
You're just
That was one of my favorite
I-
internet memes that I didn't share. If you ever feel useless in life, remember, they had to have a lifeguard in every pool of the Olympics.
You're the most useless person ever. Literally everybody's better than you there. I would assume, otherwise you'd be there.
Everyone's better, and if anything ever happened to an athlete, the first person in the water would be a coach, not the flippin' lifeguard.
Or the athlete right next to him.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was just thinking, one of the new sports coming up for the next Summer Olympics, I believe, is climbing. And that's actually legitimately one where it's one of those demonstration sports, like kind of like Nick was talking about, like make your own. But it's interesting because there's like three main disciplines of climbing. There's speed climbing, there's bouldering, which is like side to side, like just super high complexity stuff. And then there's like path, I forgot what it's called, like more traditional mountain climbing where you're like going up like a legit mountain. So like
there's more difficult routes they have to take. So basically they basically work their way up in difficulty.
Yeah. But so like
have you watched the speed climbing?
Yeah. Well, real quick. So like climbing is being introduced as an Olympic sport, and they have to do all three disciplines, where typically somebody just specializes in one. So like for Olympics, it's going to be a combination of all three disciplines. So that's one where if you really wanted a gold medal, there's a lot of people in the world that are really good at one of those, but not all three. So that's like gold medalable. Like that's available for a gold medal right now as potentially one of the easier ones to get if you're already into climbing at some capacity.
That's super interesting, and I love watching the speed climbing because those dudes, they don't even look like they're going vertical. It looks like they're going as fast up as it looks like
crawling.
Someone could just.
They're just crawling.
They're flying up those walls.
You guys ever do the bear crawl in gym class or whatever, where you're on hands and feet only, and you have to just scurry across the gym? That's what it looks like. Oh, there you go. That's what it looked like with these guys going up this road. And with the speed,
straight up.
And these routes, they are exactly the same. So one of my coworkers that sits right next to me, he's like super climber. Like he'll do the things where you climb up the mountain one day, tent on the side of the mountain, like on the side of the mountain face, and then keep climbing up the next day. Like he does that kind of stuff. And he's like, yeah, the speed climbing routes are just like the same thing all over the world. Like, are you speed climbing route A, B, or C? Those are like they're exactly the same everywhere.
If I may, what I can bring to this storyline is with being going to be marrying Megan in the future. She's a huge skier. More so, all of her friends are huge into cross country skiing, and along that same train of thought with going after gold medals, and if you're not the best at something, how do you get to the Olympics? And Megan's told me stories of people she's aware of who competed and realized they were never going to make the Olympic team for speed skating or for classic skiing, whatever they wanted to do initially, but they still really wanted to go to the Olympics. And what they ended up doing is they got into the sport of skiing and shooting. And I don't remember what it's called. To ski laps around just like you're a regular skier in the Olympics, except, oh, by the way, at every so many laps, you take that little .22 rifle off your back and you need to hit some targets. And if you don't hit the targets, you need to do additional laps in the race. So accuracy is very important. But it's very common for skiers who are good but not the best to drop out of the main competitions and go to something like the biathlon. And that would be the opportunity you're talking about where, okay, you can't do it this way, but
add a twist to it.
It's like, okay, the best skiers are never even going to try the biathlon because they're like, well, why the hell would I do that?
I can ski.
Okay, like, well, I want to go to the Olympics. Oh, I'll learn how to shoot. That'll work well. And they can go to the Olympics and they may even medal. But things like that happen all the time, and that kind of points out again the best strategy to get a medal in the Olympics is probably to be involved with creating a new sport or a new version of something, taking something that's out there already, adding a twist. So speed climbing with killing a bear, speed climbing with being a master chef. Like, I don't know.
What about sports that? So what about gold medaling in sports that maybe they're not like very mentally demanding, or they're not super physically demanding, and it's basically based off more skill and
Curling.
so, God, that's what I was thinking, was like curling, bowling, the luge, sports that like basically you're just practicing.
You shut
Oh,
your mouth. Curling is a figuring man sport. Take it back.
I feel like I should, like, whenever I see curling, I feel like they should be smoking a cigar, like, while they're going down the ice. You know what I'm saying?
There
No,
was
they
a
should be
there was a
drinking a
meme
beer.
about curling that addressed the fact that like the U.S. curling team looked like 4 dads went to the Olympics, got lost, and ended up competing or something crazy. Like they don't look like that. It's like a poor comedy movie that 4 dads are going to the Olympics to support their country. Finally, getting away from their families, they're let loose to have some fun. At
They
the
saw this
Olympic
big
Village.
stone in their way and they just kicked it. And then a bunch of people around them were like, "Hey, you're really good at that. Have a beer."
There's 4 dudes from
Yeah, look.
Duluth.
And now
They
they're
were
in-
probably drunk before and after the event as well. That's just how it goes.
I would
they
expect
represent
none
our
other way.
country truly.
Everyone knows you're better when you're drinking.
It's the only Olympic sport you can, maybe like a bit. Well, no, any sport that you can do and practice over and over again, and have every sometimes a repetition, people are going to be near perfect with it. So you have to have something that's a little bit more random.
How is like bags not an Olympic sport?
Like, being, like,
Yeah, beanbags. Yeah, like cornhole.
I was on ESPN 8 The Ocho when ESPN did that spoof briefly. They had a formal bags competition. There were stands and there were teams, and they had uniforms. It was absolutely ridiculous. I loved it.
Is ESPN H the Ocho still in existence? Because I feel like that's something I need more of in my life. Like
I don't think it is. I think they did it as a spoof temporarily, but it did pretty well.
Because, like, I feel like I always go down those rabbit holes of YouTube stuff where it's like, why am I watching people in slot racing? Like the little cars where like, you put them on the metal tracks and you, like, squeeze the triggers. They do drag races. They do lap races. There's a community of people out there that are super into slot racing. And, like, I'll go on a little, like, tangent on YouTube watching some of this stuff. And it's like, why is there not just a TV channel that just has all of this kind of stuff? Marble races. We do the
oh
marble
my
races.
God, I was just going to bring
We
that
should
up.
have Olympics be in the Olympics.
That's how you can win the Olympics, is have the best marble.
I was just thinking that. But like the thing that makes marble racing so interesting is the commentary, because it's so professionally done that you are just like loving it. It's so good. It's so well commentated that it feels like you're actually watching like an Olympic race.
How is
Like,
that
it
guy like
feels
that?
real.
That should be his like. That's basically his. I can't think. That's his application. Oh nope, not the word I was looking for. Resume. That's his resume. You just give him a business card with a link to that YouTube channel and be like, "Here's my commentating
It's
ability.
so good.
Here's my commentary abilities." Like, and then they go to that and they're like, "Oh, yep, you're hired."
Yeah, I mean,
The sand
That-
version is way better than the track version, and the track version is the Olympics. But the sand marble races are way better, just because
that's what I'm talking
there's
about.
a random element.
Yeah, the sand marble races, the commentator in that is like so good that you get excited watching the marbles. You're just like, oh, he passed them up. Like
Red
the marble
number
racers are so.
3.
And he has like really interesting names.
Marbly
for all the marbles,
McMarble
and he-
face. That was my
and there's
favorite.
like 20. Yeah, there's like 20 something marbles, and he like has every single marble memorized and knows like which marble is which. So whenever they pass each other up, like he goes, "Oh, so passed this one." Like
Oh, and like
he knows every
in his
single
newer
name.
videos, he has like tack times and checkpoint times in the top left corner. Even.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's awesome. It's so professionally done.
They're so good.
Well, do you want to wrap it up there?
Yeah, I think so. You guys good?
Yeah, it works for me.
We'll go with a yes. So one thing I do want to quick shout out is, and I don't know how I got this might have all of a sudden become a topic, but there's a YouTube channel called Special Books for Special Kids, and those guys are awesome. Like, so it's husband and wife. It's mostly the husband on camera. I'm sure it sounds like the wife does a bunch of stuff in the background, but they go around to people with special needs of some sort, or like a disability, or whatever it may be, and they kind of just like basically just interview them, be like, what's your life like? Like, what do you want people to know about you? Like, those kind of questions. And it's just super cool. But apparently they recently got their comment section shut down, and they're definitely a little hurt. I mean, I understand them being hurt by it because their comment section, number one, is super positive, and number two, is used a lot for people to, like, give support to these individuals that have special need or special ability, or not, they might have a special ability, but, like, are in general shunned from society, and they just get all these comments from people, like, being positive towards them, and like, hey, like, it's glad to meet you, like, you're super awesome, like, thanks for doing this. And their comment section just was blanketly erased on them. So I don't know, it's kind of sad, but they have awesome videos, so if you guys want to check that out, I would definitely recommend it. And one of the more recent videos they did was on this couple. I don't remember their full, like, real names, but their channel is Squirmy and Gurmy. Squirmy and Grubs. And it's a guy with spinal muscular atrophy, and he's got a girlfriend, and it's just them doing their thing, and he is so hilarious. Like, they did one of their top videos is, like, their cuddling positions. It is so funny, but just want to give those guys a shout out.
Hey, that's awesome. It's always cool to see the good in YouTube and media, because I think so often it's all the negative stuff. I mean, you listen to the news and it's basically like, oh, so sad most of the time. So anytime you can get a push for something that's, like, makes a difference, especially for people that don't really have that voice normally, is really cool to see and hear about. So thanks for sharing.
All right, you guys, anything else? Otherwise, we'll wrap her up. Take that as a wrapper up. That was episode 41 of If I May. Hope everybody enjoyed. Bringing you a new episode every Thursday, so stay tuned for those. If you'd like to support us, definitely please subscribe, share, rate, review. Like, the best support is you tell somebody, if you enjoyed the podcast, tell one of your friends to check it out. Whatever this episode, next episode, that's the best way to support us. Is, like, if you like it, tell somebody about it. Ask somebody, one of your buddies, to watch it or listen to it. We also have merch available if you're interested in that. If you'd like to get in contact with us or give us ideas for future episodes, you can DM us on Twitter at Zarubust or email zarubust@gmail.com. With that, we hope you guys all have a great Thursday, and we'll see you next week.